Hey guys, this is Kathy from Kadel Handmade, and I wanted to welcome you to my video tutorial for the clear and lined version of the Scoops Ahoy Tote. Now this pattern is a paid pattern. The Scoops Ahoy Tote is available on my website, and I will link to that in the description of this video tutorial. But this tutorial here is a free tutorial for the modified version to make it with a clear panel in the middle, and also finishing it off nicely with lining on the inside so that you don't have any raw edges or anything like that in the inside. So thank you so much for joining me for this tutorial, and let's go ahead and get started. All right, so let's go over the pieces that we're going to need. So you're going to need some clear vinyl in the center. You're going to use your centerpiece and your two side pieces for the scoops. You're going to cut out 2 sets of that. So 2 of the center, and then you're going to need 4 sides, 2 and 2 mirrored. Okay, so you have 2 of those. Then you're going to need your top bands. You need two of your exterior and 2 of your lining. I'm using Luxe vinyl for the exterior and waterproof canvas for the lining. And then you will need 2 and 2 of the bottom part of the scoop. So again, 2 vinyl for the exterior, 2 waterproof canvas for the lining. You will also need some binding material. So I am using this fold over, this color is blueberry bean. I can't even say it. Blueberry jelly bean. It's waterproof binding from Mormino, so that's the color I'm using for my binding. You will need a length of straps, and that's it. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first thing we need to do is we need to take our center panels and we are going to place them right sides together. So matching up those straight sides on the left and then on the right, we're going to stitch down each side according to the seam allowance in the original pattern. And then we are going to press these open. We're going to butterfly the seams open and top stitch down each side. All right, there is that center panel side is top stitched down. So that butterflies open the back and then it holds it down so it's nice and smooth. There's not any edges that are going to stick out and scratch you or poke you or anything like that. So you're going to do this obviously to this side, and to the other side you're going to do the exact same thing. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to grab our lining of the bottom scoop part. So right now we're going to take this and find the center, mark the center bottom. I'm just going to make a little snip here, and then in the lining we're going to find the center of that as well. There we go. All right, now for the lining, we are going to line it up, which this might feel a little different, but that's okay. That's why, that's how we're going to get the finished effect that we want. So you're going to take your lining panel and lay it right side up. You're going to take your clear panel and lay it right side up, matching up that center mark there. I'm going to flip it over because I find it easier to attach or clip these scooped edges together if it's facing this way. You probably can do it the other way too, but for me it's just a lot easier clipping the scoop this way. So we're just going to clip that all the way across. Okay, so that's how that's looking. Again, this is going to be the inside of your bag. So this is the right side of the lining with the wrong side of the clear vinyl. And we are just going to baste stitch this on. So we just want to go close to the edge just to baste stitch this in place for now. And then we're going to attach the exterior side. All right, so there we go. That is basted on. And again, this is going to be the inside of our bag, so that's how that's looking. We are going to take one of our exterior panels with the scoop, find the center of that one. So I'm matching up these sides, coming down here to the center, making that little snip. All right, so now I'm going to flip it over so it is right sides of the clear vinyl, right sides of my exterior panel, and finding that center mark again, I'm going to clip it in place and then clip again. Clip, clip, clip. Lots of clipping in this one. All right, once you have that clipped, now we are going to take it to the machine and sew all the way around this curve at the full seam allowance. Now, as you're going, I just want to say, go slow, be careful, because you do have this extra layer down here. You want to make sure it doesn't get wrinkled as you're coming around. So just kind of go slow. You can bring this hand underneath and feel, just try to help it stay nice and flat. And then that's going to give you a nice finish on the inside as well. So we will take this to the machine, sew at the full seam allowance. All right, once we have that sewn on, the last thing we want to do is just add some clips along the curve. And we're going to do this all the way around. Okay, now we're going to press both panels away from the clear vinyl. Okay, work it out, make it nice and straight. Hopefully you don't have too many wrinkles or bumps. And then the last thing we need to do here is we are going to top stitch along this curved edge. And I think my little wrinkle right here will come out as I'm doing the top stitching, but we're just going to top stitch right along this curved edge, and we are top stitching through the lining and the exterior. So we're securing both sides down and away from the curve, or from the clear vinyl. All right, now that we have that top stitched all the way across, and you can see it catches it on the back side as well, we are done with this for now. We need to now repeat the entire process for the other side. So do the exact same thing to attach the bottom scoops to this lining, the clear vinyl piece. All right, once you get both panels done, trim up your dog ears so your panels are even at the sides. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put the bottoms together. We're not attaching the tops just yet because we have to do this part first. This is a little different from the original construction method, so just hang with me and we'll get through this. So what we want to do is clip the exterior pieces together only. Okay, so just along that bottom piece, make sure your two lining pieces are not clipped with it. And then we are going to sew across according to the seam allowance. All right, here we go. This is attached. Now here's where you have a choice. So when you open this up, if you want your bottom seams to be top stitched like we do on the original, you can butterfly open those seams and top stitch right here. You can add a piece of Decoville as well if you want a more firm base, but we are going to top stitch that across. So that's one option. Your other option is to put the lining pieces together, and then when we turn it through, this will be down, and then we'll just top stitch through both. So I'm going to do it. I am not going to top stitch through this. I am only going to press this open, and then I'm only top stitching through the exterior panels on either side of that center seam. All right, here is our center seam top stitched from the inside. Lining pieces are out of the way. Seam is butterflied open and just top stitch straight down. Now again, if you wanted to add a piece of Decoville, you could add it here and then maybe add an additional row of stitching here. Really, the base is up to you how you want it to look. But I'm just going to leave this one like this because I want this bag to be a little more floppy, so I'm not adding any extra stabilizer. All right, so now we need to put together the lining pieces. So to do that, I'm going to roll up this clear vinyl, and then I'm just going to add a clip here on the side to try to help it to stay rolled up. And then I don't want to, let me fix this side over here. I don't want to clip the lining piece because I want that to be all on its own. Okay, then I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing. Roll up this exterior and then just clipping through the exterior and the clear vinyl there, and same over here. Okay, so that just kind of helps to hold those kind of out of the way for us and makes this next step a little bit easier. So now what we want to do is, just like we did on the exterior, we're going to line up our two lining pieces along that bottom straight edge, clipping all the way across. And then this one, we're going to sew it at a little bit larger seam allowance. So typically I sew at 1/4 inch. So if that's what I did for the lining, I will sew this one at 3/8 of an inch. If you normally sew at 3/8, then do the lining at 1/2 of an inch. So just make it a little bit of a larger seam allowance for your lining piece. All right, so there is that. If you wanted to butterfly open the seam as well, you could. The waterproof canvas holds pretty well when you press it. You could also use double-sided tape, or you could use some fabric glue. It's really up to you what you want to do here. Also, because this is relatively thin, I'm not too worried about it if it doesn't stay butterflied open, but I will adjust that once we get it turned through. Okay, so now that you have this done, we're unclipping the bag and then we're turning it through. So you just want to reach your hand in and turn everything out. Okay, there we go there. There it is on the lining. I might just go ahead and give it a little press. I do have a couple little wrinkles here. I think some of that is somewhat unavoidable, so don't stress out too much. I mean, it's just the nature of having two pieces together on this curve, and when you're stitching one side then stitching the other side, sometimes you get a couple little wrinkles. But like I said, I'm not too worried about that. Okay, now here was your other option. So if you did not top stitch it here and you waited to top stitch both together, then you would take the whole thing, lay it out flat, and top stitch through the exterior and the lining, and then that would give you, that would connect your lining to your exterior and make it so that the lining doesn't move around at all. Since this is so small and we're going to end up closing the sides and doing the box bottoms, it really doesn't move around that much anyway, so I'm not too worried about that. All right, so now that we have it like that, we need to put the sides together. So just like on the regular scoops, you're going to line up that side seam right there, clip it in place, and we are clipping everything in place, lining and exterior, all the way down. And then all the way up to the side. So just like that, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, lining up this curve right here on the scoop, clipping it in place, making sure all my layers are nice and flat. And then one more here at the top. All right, so that's how that's looking, clipped along both sides. Now we are going to stitch down both sides according to the seam allowance. So standard seam allowance here, we're just stitching down both sides. All right, so there is the bag stitched down the sides. I will say this part right here, since you have just 2 layers of vinyl here, but then you have 4 layers of other stuff here, since you would have a little bit thicker seam here, I will say that it does get a little bit tricky. So if you are using a domestic, you might want to use a hump jumper to get you over this. Alternately, you could start from this end and then it's an easier transition. You probably still will want the hump jumper to help you get back down to this thickness. But just keep that in mind that that part right there is a little thick, and so you might have a little bit of a struggle to get over it. All right, so now what we're going to do, we are going to bind the sides. And so I'm using this, what is this called? Yeah, the thing I had the hard time saying, blueberry jelly bean waterproof bag binding. So I'm just going to fold this over the side of the bag. Okay, all the way down. And again, now another thing to keep in mind, you're adding another 2 layers to that side seam right there. So if you have an industrial, you probably won't have a problem going through it, but just something to keep in mind that it is going to be probably a little bit more of a struggle for your machine. So if you have a stronger needle, I would recommend switching to like a leather needle or something that is more heavy duty, and that should help you get through that side. Okay, once we have those side seams, the binding attached, we are just going to sew down each side, attaching the binding. Okay, binding is all attached, so now we just need to trim up these edges, make sure everything lines up nice. This one's already pretty good. I'll trim. Okay, there we go, that's much better. All right, so now that we have the binding on, now we need to box the corners. So we're going to open up our corners. Try to butterfly open this bottom seam here if I can. My fingers want to go in there right. All right, so I've got that one, and then I'm straightening out the sides there. Okay, so as you can see, we have the binding that's sticking up. This is going to get thick at the bottom. There's no way around it because, again, just the nature of the way we're making this bag, it's just going to be thick. So if you have a domestic machine, one thing that I can recommend for trying to help get some of that bulk down in the seam is you could take a hammer and it sounds funny, but just hammer away at that seam and that kind of flattens it, and that might help it to be a little bit easier for your machine to get over. That's one tip that you could try. And like I said, as long as you have also a stronger needle, that should also help. All right, so matching up those side seams there. All right, adding the clips. All right, so that's how that's looking. Now what we want to do is I'm going to grab another larger clip here. And we are going to sew across just like we normally would. To create the box bottom, we're going to sew straight across this edge. Then we are going to take binding, fold it over that edge, and stitch straight across. So I'm going to do all of those things to both corners. I'm going to do those off camera, and then I'll be back to show you our next steps. All right, so there is the bottom corner, binding attached. And I will say, you've probably figured it out already, but you do have to press this binding over to the side in order to sew this down. So it doesn't really matter which side you press it to, just make sure it's pressed down to one side. All right, I'm just trimming up some thread tails, and now to the other side I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just trimming this at an angle. I'm not really concerned about it being raw edge right there. You could add some fray check depending on the type of material that you're using for your binding, if you're worried about it starting to fray. But since this is going to be in the very bottom corner of the bag, I'm not too worried about that. All right, guys, so that's what our bag is looking like. We're almost done, if you can imagine that. So what I want to do now is turn the bag through. There we go. Oh my gosh, it's looking so cute. All right, so there's how our bag is looking. Now what we need to do is we need to attach these top bands. So what we're going to do first is on the back, make sure I'm on the right side. On the back of each of these pieces, we're going to flip it over, and we're going to draw a line. Let me move these up. On the bottom of each, we are going to draw a line that is 1/2 inch up. So let me do this here, and where's my pen? Okay, now because of the way that we have to make this, what we are going to do is, if you've ever done a drop-in lining, that's basically the way we're going to have to finish off the top of this bag. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach some double-sided tape. I'm going to just lay that. So even if you don't have, if you have 1/2 inch tape, it should match exactly to your drawn line. You could also use 1/4 inch tape. All right, so let me finish getting this taped over here. All right, you also could put the double-sided tape on later. I just find it easier to do this prep work first because it's flat and it's just easier than once we get it in the bag and it's sewn and it's in a circle, and then it can be a little more tricky. All right, so what we want to do with these pieces is we are going to lay them now right sides together. So you want to make sure that your double-sided tape is on the same side, and then we are going to clip them on the sides. We're going to do the same thing for the exterior and for the lining. So again, making sure your double-sided tape is on the same side. And then now we are going to take these to the sewing machine, and we are going to sew down the side seams where they're clipped. And we're going to do this according to the seam allowance. So again, This one, since it's the exterior, will be the standard seam allowance. This one will be just slightly in. So if you're using 1/4 inch here, use 3/8 inch here. So we're gonna sew just down the side seams. All right, so once you get your side seams sewn on, what you're gonna end up here with is 2 circles. What I've also done is I've butterflied open the side seams and then just top stitched. And I've done that for both the lining and the exterior. I just think that'll give it a nice finish. You don't have to do that, but it does give it a nice finish on the outside, and it also helps that seam to lay flat when you're sewing it together. So it's kind of an extra bonus there. Okay, so now we are ready to attach this to the bag. So what we want to do for the exterior, I'm going to stand the bag up with the double-sided tape down. We're going to just slide it over our bag here. And then lining up, oops, because mine slides all the way down. Let's see, I want to see on the inside, I want to see, so the binding is pushed that way, so I want to make sure I push it that way for the top. And then I'm going to line up that side seam and clip it in place. I'm going to use, since I have the binding there, I'm just going to use one of my stronger clips here. And then on the other side, again, it's going that way. So I'm pushing the binding over, aligning the side seam and clipping it. And then I'm going to clip it the rest of the way around. Okay, so there is the exterior clipped around. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take the lining, and on the inside, so both our lining and our exterior top bands are right side in, wrong side out. Get this inside here. And then I'm going to line up, again, sorry, the lining will be right side out, wrong side in, because these are going to be folding up. So when we get to the next step, we're going to be folding both of them up to the top, and so we want the wrong sides to wrong sides. Okay, and then coming around to this side, clipping that side in place. And then continue clipping all the way around the bag. Okay, once you get that clipped all the way around, we are going to sew all the way around the bag at the standard seam allowance. All right, top stitched around. Now what we want to do is we want to pull both pieces up and away from the center of the bag. So we're going to pull our lining up, and then we're going to pull our exterior up, and then pull our lining up. Okay, and here again, I'm just going to try to like finger press these seams away from that center panel, and I'm going to clip it again because I just think that that helps it to hold it, because we are going to be top stitching around this edge right here. So anything we can do to help the fabric hold in the place where it's supposed to be, I highly recommend. So again, I'm just pulling both fabric pieces up and away from that clear vinyl. Again, clipping in place. There we go. All right, once you get that clipped, make sure like I said, your exterior and your lining are both away. We're going to take it over to the machine, and now we're going to top stitch just along this folded edge right here, still leaving this top edge undone. All right, here's a quick pro tip that I wanted to share. Since I like top stitching on the exterior, I don't have a cylinder arm, so it's really hard to do if I have the bag right side out. So I just turn it wrong side out, and then I can top stitch through on this piece on my regular semi-industrial domestic machine, and it's a lot easier. Even on my industrial, I don't have a cylinder arm, so it just makes it easier for me to see. All right, so now I'm going to turn it back out. And then we have another option, another period, choose your own adventure for this bag. So we can make the straps the way we normally do and attach them to this bag, which is what I'm going to do. So that's where we take the strap and we attach it like this with some rivets and some bag hardware here at the end. So I'm going to attach my straps this way. The other option you have is that you could slide the strap in and press it all the way down. So it's kind of, you can see it down there. It stops right there at that seam allowance. And then just sew it into the bag that way. So that's, you know, just a couple options. Something, like I said, choose your own adventure. All right, but now we need to take off these clips because we need to turn under the seam allowance on the exterior and the lining. So this is where our double-sided tape comes into play. So I'm just going to push the lining down because I don't want it getting in the way right now. So I'm just pushing that down. All right, and then for my side, so you can still see the line there once I removed the double-sided tape. And I'm just gonna fold it. I don't know if you can see this here. I'm just folding it on that line. So because I'm using 1/2 inch double-sided tape, I'm ending up with a 1/2 inch fold under. Sorry if I'm trying to get this at a good camera angle, but I'm ending up with a 1/2 inch fold under here of this vinyl. And like I said, if you used a 1/4 inch, you could do that. If you wanted to fold it to the 1/2 inch line, you could do that. Again, choose your own adventure. That's one thing I try to do with my patterns. It's like I try to make them fun and easy, and also easily modifiable, if that's a word. Easy to make modifications to, depending on what you want, what you have, what your machine's ability is, and what you like in a bag. I try to give options so that you guys can make the bags exactly how you want them. Okay, so now I'm going to try to fold down the exterior so that I'm only working with the lining. There we go. All right, this one might be a little bit easier to see how I'm folding it down right there at that line. And I'm not worried about this little bit extra paper backing because it's going to be sewn. It's in the seam. Fold it in there. No one's going to see that. Like, literally, no one's going to see that. It would have to be like, I don't know, have x-ray vision or something to be able to see underneath your folded seam and see, oh, there's a teeny piece of paper there. All right, so once I get that folded, I'm going to fold my exterior back up. All right, there we go. Now everything should line up perfectly if we measured perfectly. So we just want to clip all the way around. And I'm probably going to end up turning this bag through again so that I can top stitch along the exterior and see it. I just think that gives me a cleaner finish, a cleaner look. I'm able to see my exterior just in case my 2 layers don't line up exactly right. I can see the exterior and know that I'm top stitching right where I want the top stitching to be, since on the outside of the bag, that's where you're going to see it. All right, so there we go. So now we just top stitch all the way around the top of this bag, finishing it off. And guys, we're almost done with this thing. All right, guys, now to finish it off, you will attach your straps just like the directions provide in the original pattern. And look at how cute this is. I mean, it comes together relatively quick. Of course, there are a couple things that are a little tricky about it, but I mean, look how great that looks. It's so cute. All right, I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me. And if you haven't found me already, look for me on my socials on Instagram. I have a Facebook makers group, and I am also on Threads. I will link to all of that in the description of this video so that you can find me, including my website. And yeah, I hope you guys, again, just enjoyed this video tutorial. Thank you so much for joining me, and go sew something fun.